Back at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center for the final time before the time we'll come here to talk about Michigan. We came here today to talk about Ohio State getting ready for its 11th game of the season against Minnesota. I'm Nathan Baird from cleveland.com, along with Stephen Means and Andrew Gillis. A piece of news that we got today, or maybe just some clarity on some news. Ryan Day, after the win against Michigan State last Saturday, called Lathan Ransom's injury long-term. Today, we got clarity that means definitely not back in the next couple of weeks. So that takes him out through the end of the regular season. You would presume if Ohio State gets to the Big Ten Championship game, that might also take him out of that because that's only 1 week later. Seemed like he left open the door that he could be back in a postseason situation. Lathan is a fourth-year player with obviously some NFL prospects, so depending on what the postseason means, that could factor into that decision. But, Steven, how significant is this loss? They've been playing without him for a couple of weeks. They have adapted, but still, you'd like to have your optimal defense for Michigan next week, and they won't have that.
I think some of the depth that's been built up has maybe put a parachute on how fast they're falling off of this. But the fact that Sonny Styles can't play nickel and you have Lathan Ransom back there as your security blanket, especially since there have been times this year when the linebackers have been a little bit inconsistent with tackling. And so it's the same thing can be up front. Not having one of your best players who's been at an all Big Ten level all year, that's a big deal. But I do think between Sonny Styles being a guy who's versatile and move all over the place, Jordan Hancock being at nickel and the way he's played this year, Malik Hartford starting to get it, you've got some options back there to where a year ago, and I mean you're going to be writing about this, a year ago you'd be freaking out about this. And I don't think they necessarily have to freak out even if it is one of their better players who won't be available for the next 2 weeks at least.
So it's been Sonny Styles that has moved from nickel to bandit, strong safety, to fill in for Lathan Ransom. It made Jordan Hancock, former cornerback, a full-time nickel, basically. But there are some things that move around in the back end there. And Jim Knowles, when I asked him about it today, Andrew, sort of emphasized that this isn't just a one-for-one thing. He's talking about Jahad Carter being healthy and being able to play, a guy that they got as a transfer from Syracuse kind of for exactly this reason, because they needed more like dependable, experienced depth in the secondary. This isn't as easy as just Sonny Styles having to now be what Lathan Ransom was. It has to do with maybe just that versatility that they've had being used in different ways to match up, especially for that opponent.
You guys have seen Moneyball, right? When they say, how do we replace Damon? How do you do that? How do you replace Giambi? You replace them in the aggregate, and you replace them in a couple of different ways, and the versatility is how you do that. So you can move Styles around to the areas in which he's most effective. You can have Jahad Carter there. Hancock can move inside and outside corner. Like Malik Hartford, Ryan Day mentioned, I think it was Ryan Day that said he's not as wide-eyed as he was, in that first game of the year. He's slowly starting to get it. You just mentioned guys playing fast. That was something that they've mentioned a lot with Sonny Styles this year. They don't want to overload him. We've mentioned it a billion times. This guy should still be a true freshman. This guy is ahead of schedule. This guy is just he's relatively new to the college game, and you don't want to overload that guy. So it's all about making these guys play fast and putting them in the right situations and putting them in the right spot. So yeah, the secondary depth is key, and I think we've hit on it. Like Styles, Proctor, Ransom, like you lose Ransom, Styles, Proctor, you have Hancock there, Hartford's coming along. Like you have the guys that you feel maybe not as good in, but like Steven said, nobody's sitting around here going, the sky is falling, this is death, we're in trouble. You feel okay about it.
Yeah, Lathan Ransom has been so dependable that I feel like he got a little bit overlooked at times this season because this defensive line came along, and Tyleik Williams has this amazing kind of breakthrough this year, and the defensive ends have been coming along and being so valuable. And what Tommy Eichenberg is a senior leader in the middle of the defense, and Denzel Burke and Davison Igbinosun like resurrecting the cornerback room. And then Lathan Ransom has this whole time been a guy who just very consistently like played downhill, could make plays, could break up plays, it just seemed to always be around the ball in a really aggressive way. And I think that's the way that Ohio State could miss him the most against Michigan, just the way he was such a dependable kind of tone setter. But I don't think that means that they can't win that game without him, because I think this is what they've been sort of building towards with Sonny Styles. We played a lot of Bandit back in the spring when they were still figuring out exactly what they wanted to do with him before they made him the starting nickel. He is versatile. He is very talented. He has some things that Lathan doesn't have in terms of his size, for one, which is something that Jim Knowles brought up today. How that applies to exact matchups against Michigan, remains to be seen. There are, they use their tight ends a lot. Obviously, a run-heavy team. I think that's the key. It's like, does Ohio State pick the right matchups and make the right personnel decisions against certain matchups, certain packages that Michigan puts on the field? We'll be talking a lot more about that going into next week. Obviously, biggest game in college football, not just that week, but basically this season. It's going to be 2 top 3, top 4 teams going against each other, and it's probably going to decide who goes to the college football playoff this year, potentially. So come to Buckeye Talk every day of the week to hear us talk about that. Get it wherever you can find podcasts, and get the text 614-350-3315.